In the early 1900s, nestled deep in the shadowy arms of the Appalachian foothills, stood the McAllister family farm, a lonely stretch of land surrounded by dense woods, whispering creeks, and more folklore than most dared speak aloud. For generations, the McAllisters had tilled the soil, built barns from fallen timber, and buried their dead beneath the same crooked trees that shaded the fields. George McAllister, a quiet, broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, had inherited the farm from his father, a man hardened by the land. George wasn't prone to superstition. But by 1908, the land had begun to change, or perhaps it was George who began to notice what others chose to ignore. It started small. Local simple people, wary of the forest, spoke of strange lights at night, soft glowing orbs that floated silently over the fields, sometimes disappearing near the creek that cut through the back of the property. George dismissed it as nonsense until one of his farmhands, Tom Jenkins, disappeared. Tom had been a loyal worker. On a chilly October evening, after supper, he told George he saw a woman in white walking along the woods by the creek. He followed her into the mist. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. A search party combed the woods. They found only a set of boot prints, leading to the water's edge, and then nothing. Like he'd stepped off the earth itself. From that night on, something hung heavy over the farm. That winter brought more than just snow. At night, soft tapping could be heard at the windows. George, always armed, would find no one outside, just frost patterns shaped like fingers. Doors that he locked tight before bed would creak open by dawn. One night, the rocking chair that had belonged to his father spun slowly in place when George entered the room. His wife, Mary, once vibrant and strong-willed, began waking up screaming. "She's here," she would sob, trembling. "She's watching from the window." Neighbors stopped visiting. The animals grew nervous. And though George was not a man of faith, even he began to doubt what he knew to be real. Desperate, George contacted Father Malone, a traveling priest. The priest agreed to bless the farmhouse. He sprinkled holy water over doorframes, recited Latin prayers, and marked crosses above the bedposts. That night, silence. No tapping. Number. Creaking floorboards. But the silence was unnatural, too still, like the land was holding its breath. The next morning, everything seemed normal until Mary vanished. April brought a thick mist one morning, and with it, emptiness. Mary's side of the bed was cold. Her nightdress hung neatly. Her shoes were untouched. The front door was still locked from the inside. George searched the house, then the barn, then the woods. He called for her until his voice cracked. The sheriff was summoned. A search party combed every inch of the farm and creek. They found Mary's bonnet snagged on a thorn bush near the water, smeared with mud and something else, something dark. But no footprints, no body. George fell into grief, but grief mixed with something darker. Guilt or fear. That's when the house began to speak. Mary's perfume, lilac and rose, would drift through the hallway at midnight. Her favorite rocking chair moved again, rocking slowly, as if someone invisible sat watching. Her sewing, left half-finished in a basket, was torn to shreds one morning. And always, just before the rooster crowed, George heard faint weeping from the parlor. He began sleeping with a rifle across his chest. One night, unable to bear it any longer, George followed the signs. He lit Tom Jenkins's old lantern, took his rifle, and marched into the woods behind the creek. Hours passed. The woods were a black maze. Shadows twisted into shapes. The air thickened with mist. Then he saw it. A pale figure near the water. A woman in white. She didn't walk, she floated. The glowing orb hovered beside her head, pulsing like a heartbeat. As George stepped forward, the figure turned. Mary. She looked at him, lips moving silently. "George," she mouthed, though no sound came. She lifted a hand, then shimmered, flickered and vanished. The orb blinked once, then dropped into the creek. George lunged forward, but there was nothing, just freezing water. He returned to the house at dawn, soaked and shaking. A neighbor found him collapsed on the porch, rifle gone, mumbling about the light and her eyes. He never returned to the woods. George sold the farm a year later, moved to town, married again, but never spoke of Mary. He avoided mirrors. He never returned to the forest. When he died in 1936, his will requested a simple gravestone. It read, "George McAllister lost more than his way." The new owners of the land didn't stay long. In the 1940s, a traveler staying in the old house reported a woman's voice singing lullabies at night. When he looked outside, he saw her standing in white just before she melted into the mist. In 1972, a teenager camping in the backwoods woke to see a pale woman crouched at the creek, hair hanging like moss, staring straight at him. He ran and never returned. No one has lived on the land in over 50 years. No body, no explanation. Only whispers. Some say Mary was lured by the orb, one of the will-o'-the-wisps, spirits said to trick souls into wandering too far from home. Others claim the land itself is cursed, an ancient burial site, or a place where something dark waits, feeding on grief. But many believe she never left, that she walks those woods still lost in a moment, caught between time and the trees, searching for George, or worse, waiting for someone new. They say if you walk near the creek on a foggy night and the wind falls still, you'll smell her perfume-sweet lilac, out of place in the wild. You may hear a gentle tapping on your window as you drift to sleep. And if you wake to find your rocking chair facing the wall, don't turn it around. Because sometimes it's better not to see what's sitting there.